Hi everybody, welcome to my video of making lime mint cold process soap. This is an interesting video because it shows what can happen when some things go wrong. So this is not a perfect soap making video, but I want to show it to you nonetheless. I'm adding the pre-measured lye water to the pre-measured oils so that saponification can get started. I want to bring this to a light trace, and so I'm going to mix up a bit and see where we are. There, I burped the blender. It's so funny because the dog runs outside during this every time. So this is working its way toward the trace that I want. It's looking pretty well mixed. I'm getting a little thicker, but not too thick yet. I like to switch off from keeping the blender on and then stirring with it off, just so that the trace doesn't get out of hand on me. So I'm just patiently stick blending. If I knew how to fast forward, I would fast forward through this part for you. You might notice there are some video cuts, though, where I started and stopped the video. That was just to shorten it down from about 16 minutes long. There were some parts that were easy to cut out, but the transitions aren't always smooth. Okay, it's looking good. It's thin, but I know that a good trace has started. Here's my first mistake. I'm adding a lime mint fragrance oil, and I knew this, that it would likely accelerate trace. But I wanted to get the fragrance in the whole batch before working further with it and splitting it into different colors. I would not make that same choice again with this particular fragrance, and later you'll see why. Now here I'm mixing my colorant. I should have had it mixed ahead of time. That would have saved a little bit of time of the soap just sitting there. I reserved out some olive oil, and I'm using neon green colorant. And I'll put it in there, measure it in there to what I think I'm going to need, and then I'll stir it up with a stick just so that the powdery bit on top gets incorporated a little bit before I blend it further. It would have helped a whole lot had I done this ahead. It's much easier to have the colorants ready to go. Okay, there you can see there's still some powder on top, and I try to work that in. Meanwhile, my soap sits and waits. When I think most of the loose stuff is down in there, then I'll work with a blender, a little blender. I got this mini mixer from Brambleberry, and I really like it for mixing my colorants. So now I'm just trying to get any hunks that are left there and get it as smooth as I can before adding it to the soap mixture. Okay. Now you can tell as I stir the soap's a little thicker. Looking at it, it's at quite a heavy trace already. Initially I had in mind to do some swirls. At this point I know the soap is beyond that, so there won't be any swirling going on. Now I'm measuring out the portion that I want to leave white, And I'm going to color the remainder with the green that I just mixed up. And I can tell as it's sitting on top there that the soap base is pretty thick. So I'll use a wire whisk and try to get that beat down. I would say at this point the texture of that soap is like dry mashed potatoes or even cold mashed potatoes. So trying to stir it is quite challenging at this point. I decided to go ahead and put some more color in, and my arm is ready to fall off, but I keep going. And I keep stirring in because I want the color to be solid throughout. I'm not going for a streaky look. Of course, at this point, I'm just hoping to be able to get the soap in the mold, quite frankly. If you have ever had a batch seize on you, or if you dilly-dallied around until it went to heavier trace than you prefer, then you know exactly what I'm going through. If you've never made soap, or if you're new to soap making, this is not an example of how thick it should be as you pour. So it's very thick right now, but I managed to slosh it around a bit. And I'm just trying to make sure that it got down in the corners. I'm pretty sure there are going to be some air bubbles because of how far the soap had traced. I don't know if I would call it seizing or not. It really wasn't the soap's fault, it was my own sequence of events. Next, I want to put some activated charcoal on, so I want to get the sides cleaned off of the green as much as I can, which is kind of laughable because at this point I should be satisfied just to be able to get it into the molds. So I'm going to put the activated charcoal in the sieve so that I can get a light dusting of activated charcoal. Note to self, use a spoon next time to take the charcoal out of the jar to alleviate the big clump that happened there at the onset. Now at this point I'm a little worried about the soap adhering to the charcoal because the soap is so far gone, shall we say. I put a little white in because I want it to be a white contrast. And again, I'm voicing over this as I'm watching, and I just have to chuckle at myself because you would think I would cut my losses and just get the soap in the mold at this point. But I had an idea in my mind and I kept going on it. So at this point the soap is really, really thick. You can see that it's hard to get in there. Oh. And at the time I was chuckling to myself too at the chunks of soap on my hands. And just trying to figure out how I was going to get it on top of the charcoal. The idea I had in mind was for the soap to be smooth enough at this point that I would have to pour it over the spatula to ease it onto the charcoal layer to try to have crisp layers. So at this point I'm just kind of laughing at my plan and putting things together, figuring that one great thing about soap is you can almost always rebatch it and repurpose it and make it useful. Sometimes it's even better after it goes through all that. So as I am trying to get the soap in there, I also have on my mind what the future plans for these loaves of soap might be if they don't turn out this way. But I'm still not really in a rush. I'm just going along. It's like trying to frost very thick frosting. And again, my arm feels like it's going to fall off. So I continue on. The plan for the top is to put more green on. So out comes some clay. At this point, the soap, it just almost feels like clay to me. So I'm just going to smush it on there the best I can. And as is the case with cold processed soap, it's always hard to wait to see what you get when you're trying something new. My goal here is to try to just fill in any air bubbles that might be hanging around, and then to get the top somewhat smoothed out. I'm not happy with the black on the top, but I got the soap in the mold. Yeah, I would love to hear from you if you've had an experience like this, and hear how you adjusted and how your batch turned out. The lime mint is a wonderful mix of lime and mint. So I'm very happy with the fragrance. I just will need to remember for next time that it does move very quickly. So I will show you the cutting video in a couple of days. Thanks so much for watching.